Attitude. I have repeatedly emphasized in getting well that if you come to a negotiation with a confrontational attitude, you'll get less. In fact, 75% less over the long term. So the next questions are, how do the parties treat each other? Do they blame each other? Do they threaten each other? Do they try to hurt each other? Or do they try to work collaboratively toward a solution that meets the needs of all? If your needs are not met, you will not give things to the other side. This is a fact of human nature. Usually, if someone tries to hurt you, you will try to hurt them back. Part of the problem in too many public issues is that there is not collaborative process. Instead, each winner takes all. This is the first of four definitions of negotiation presented in chapter 1. Getting the other party to do what you will them to do. It is the most expensive and least effective form of negotiation. For the parties to have a sustainable agreement, they have to want to meet each other's needs. At least they have tried hard to meet each other's needs. Let's measure this against some public issues of recent years. Former US President George W. Bush called North Korea part of an axis of evil in 2002, and he said the United States would feel free to attack any country that the United States perceived as threatening us. Then the United States attacked Iraq, part of the same axis of evil as North Korea. If you were the North Korean president, what would you do? You'd try to develop nuclear weapons to protect your country. Essentially, the negotiation strategy of the United States encouraged North Korea to continue developing a program of nuclear weapons. When people feel threatened, they fight back. Let's look at sanctions, which are essentially threats of economic harm. Each perennial negotiation strategy for public issues. In principle, sanctions are designed to break a government's resolve to continue its current behavior. A legion of studies show that historically sanctions have not worked well. They tend to unite a country against the nation trying to force their will. They will cause the target to be inventive in building its own coalition or try to find ways around sanctions. It's hard to hold a coalition nations together in imposing sanctions for very long. Sanctions are hard to enforce. The black market is inventive. At best, sanctions are a long and arduous road. They haven't worked with Cuba in 50 years. The people largely hurt from embargoes are already victims, those at the bottom of the economic scale. The leaders of all countries live well. Sanctions work best when the target has few other options, when there is powerful internal dissent, or when the relief sought is limited. Iran, with its big nuclear program and a lot of oil, strong military dictatorship, and multiple allies, doesn't fit this condition very well. North Korea, more economically disadvantaged and politically isolated, fits them somewhat more and occasionally shows some response to sanctions. It is estimated that sanctions cost the United States up to $20 billion a year in lost exports. Even if you can make an argument for their use, there are usually better negotiation options using the kinds of tools I have discussed in this book. Let's look at some. First, the opposite of sanction, flooding the market. One reason the former Soviet Union fell was the increasing internal demand for foreign culture, representing a better life, from the blue jeans to computers, movies to magazines. Western goods and services have proven to be a powerful door opener. They are harder to resist. Lifting the trade embargo to Cuba would expose the country to the kind of capitalism, such as teenage culture, that extreme societies would find it difficult to combat. Indeed, hip hop and rap, the US music invasions, are spreading messages of individuality to teenagers worldwide. It's not fancy, but it's more of a foreign policy opportunity than many people realize. It is a communication opener. Similarly, promoting the internet is a strong negotiation strategy. While equivocate about whether Cuba should join the Organization of American States, invite them to join everything. It's not a reward. In fact, it's just the opposite. It'll make it harder for Cuban political leaders to maintain the status quo, and it opens communication. It makes the other party more persuadable. In 2008, Iran bought wheat from the United States for the first time in 27 years. The more than a million tons of winter wheat are a basis for economic cooperation. The best way to persuade people to do something for you is to provide benefits, not to threaten them. China is making money exporting goods to Iran. Why isn't the United States, with its cash-strapped economy, doing the same? Iran imported about $57 billion in goods and services in 2009. In other words, the maxim, hold your friends close and your enemies closer, is good advice for persuasion. Holding them closer means getting more information and having more influence. It may seem counterintuitive to many people, but it is far more effective in meeting goals. If there was more communication with Iran, the United States would know more about the Iranians as people and would have a better idea of how to persuade the leaders to keep their treaties, said Ansar Mohammadi, an Iranian attorney and a graduate of Penn Law School. She said that many Americans, after meeting her, said they didn't like Iranian until they met her. She also said she was usually the first Iranian they had met. Yesterday versus tomorrow, the right negotiator. This was mentioned above, but it's worth giving it its own category because it is a major criteria of successful versus unsuccessful negotiations. The question to ask are the parties fighting over yesterday? Are the parties blame each other for yesterday? Or are they focused on improving tomorrow? If a local town council or a school board candidate is more interested in casting blame than creating opportunity, it is a big clue that they are less interested in adding value. The key to successful negotiations. In the Middle East, the parties seem mostly to be fighting over yesterday. No matter how many treaties and envoys there are, someone will always try to take revenge on someone else for something that happened yesterday. Peace is not possible under those circumstances. The process is poor. It also raises the question of who the right negotiating party should be. If the process is poor because the people can get past yesterday, then the individuals involved are the wrong negotiator. So the style and identity of the negotiators are key. For example, the mere presence of the United States is radicalizing influence in much of the world. As such, a reduced overt presence by the US would not only be cheaper and safer, it would be more effective in negotiation. Again, the US military forming an alliance with the tribal leaders is a highly effective negotiation strategy. Various reports indicate that the defeat of the Taliban in Afghanistan in 2001 was spread as spearheaded on the ground by at most a few dozen US Special Forces operatives who trained many local tribal people. The tribal people knew the countryside, where the Taliban were, and how to recruit their own fighters. This is clearly an effective way to achieve our goals, persuading the local to fight their own war. Within each public issue, the clearest division is between moderates and extremists. As such, the right third parties in a negotiation are moderate. They, more than extremists, are focused on building a better way of life, whereas most extremists are focused on treating things down as a penalty for yesterday. That means in the Middle East, the right people to go after Jewish extremists are Jewish moderates. The right people to go after Arab extremists are Arab moderates. Why look for terrorists ourselves when others are better equipped to do so? In all public issues, the choice of a negotiator is key. Uncovering and trading needs. Ultimately, to be successful at negotiating, you need to meet the needs of the other party, communicating effectively, understanding their perceptions, having the right attitude, and having the right negotiator just bring you to the place where you are ready to talk effectively. Now you need to determine what needs of each party can be met and how they can be traded. This is the currency of the negotiation. This currency for most people in the world is basic human needs. Whether a negotiation involves the victim of Hurricane Katrina or a Palestinian refugees. Addressing the basic necessities of life is a starting point. So, negotiating for a solution to public issues has to begin with those needs. In that context, psychologist Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a good basis for the negotiation of major public issues. People's most basic needs involve food, water, stability, security, employment, the safety of their families, health, and property, as well as various bodily functions. They need enough to eat, clean drinking water, shelter, and freedom from bodily harm. Notwithstanding these issues and things that are less important to most of humanity occupy much of the time of the media and politicians in major public issues: morality, prejudice, politics, achievement. In many big disputes around the world, policymakers start from the top: peace, democracy, various ideas. Yet few people are interested in even listening to an appeal to their ideas before their basic needs are met. Right now, people who need basic things like enough food are being radicalized daily for lack of them. Ideology is not the only reason that extremist groups like Hamas have so many supporters, although the Hamas political line says so. Hamas feeds Arabs without enough to eat. Hamas also provides medical services and even matchmaking services. People whose basic needs are met are more apt to repeat the organization's party line. Conversely, there's much evidence that hunger begets violence and social unrest. You have seen that in Egypt, Haiti, Senegal, Burkina Faso, Niger, Malaysia, Thailand, Mexico, Uzbekistan, and other places. If you are hungry and you get angry quicker, said Arif Hussein, Deputy Chief of Food Security at the World Food Programme. Studies show this is even more pronounced with children and can cause severe emotional problems. The cycle of violence starts young. In the United States and other countries want to win the hearts and minds of hundreds of millions of people. Something similar must occur to what the United States did with the former Soviet Union in the arms race. Bankrupt the other side. If Hamas provides bread, the United States, the UN, or other allies should provide bread and meat. If Hamas provides 1,000 calories a day, the people wanting to stop Hamas should provide 2,000 calories a day. As such, if Israel wants to start building a coalition with Arabs, it needs to start providing basic needs for more people. By and large, Israel has not done that. Sending missiles to blow up things in Gaza just creates more Hamas sympathizers. Instead, the Israelis should be throwing food at them. Israel bombed Gaza today with 50 tons of bread and meat. Some people will ridicule this. Hungry people what? After that, provide the moderates with something they won't want to lose: food, housing, education, medical care, healthcare, security. The moderators will then find the extremists and hunt them. or eliminate them. It is a basic human principle. Rather works better than bombs at long-term persuasion. Building on the existing Arab-Israeli peace groups is a negotiation process that would add moderation. If you are skeptical, try living in the desert for 6 months without much food, water, medical care, education, air conditioning, or the other necessity of life. Then get fed by some people who say your misery was caused by the United States. See how you feel. You will agree with much of what your providers tell you. In other words, we must provide terrorist sympathizers with a meaningful choice for a better life in order to persuade them to follow a different path. Some policy experts claim that the notion of terrorism arising from poverty has been disproved. They point to a few rich people financing or carrying out terrorism. True, there are few rich ideologies, but they derive much of their power and support from the tens of millions of the destitute. This is about persuasion of those who are persuaded. I came upon this subject in 1981 after Israel bombed and destroyed a nuclear power plant being built in Iraq. As a journalist, I was doing a story on the technology to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. Israel thought Iraq was trying to gather material for bombs from the reactor. So I called all of the scientists I could find who had worked on the Manhattan Project to build the atomic bomb for the United States during World War II. Most of them were in their 80s and retired from places like MIT, Caltech, and other of the best engineering schools in the country. I asked each of them the same question: what technologies existed to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons? Unprompted, they all gave me almost exactly the same answer. Each said something like, wrong question. If you want to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons, feed people, give them medical care, clothing, education, shelter, and jobs. An Arab businessman once told me about which side he thought had the best argument. He said, on the I feed my family side. I'm on the good medical care side. It is about Maslow's needs pyramid first, and after that it is about prosperity. In Syria, even business people without any love for Israel think economic cooperation is a good idea. It would help Syria's economy. In Lebanon, dialogues are occurring at the community level between Western and Islamic professions. It is the basis for joint business. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Ukraine, at the request of the United States, sent its nuclear warhead to Moscow. In turn, Ukraine got various economic benefits. There is a precedent for trading economic benefits for a nuclear program. North Korea has had to ration food. Food growing technology as well as food itself could be provided to North Korea in exchange for nuclear forbearance. This is not intended to provide a specific solution for North Korea. It is intended to show there is a road not taken here, one that taps into fundamental human needs. This is not to say that politics has no importance in resolving public issues, but government can be used to support the economic growth that provides for basic needs. The negotiation reason for doing so is that when people are deprived, they are emotional. When they are emotional, they are less persuadable. They respond to the people who provide them with emotional payment. That is the basic necessities of life. This negotiation strategy has not been persuaded as vigorous as it could be. In fact, the history of the Middle East peace process has been a quest for ceremonial peace, pronouncement by envoys and formal treaties. Instead, to gain supporters, one needs operational peace. That is, peace on the ground, where people live. Instead of operational peace, the United States has also persuaded technological peace. Increasingly sophisticated technology and expensive infrastructure to contain terrorism. I'm not suggesting we stop this. However, ultimately, we will not be able to stop terrorism this way. As Albert Einstein said, after the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, there's no secret and there's no defense. Every time you find a solution to a terrorist actions, terrorists will find a new method. After 9/11, there was a shoe bomb on a plane. After shoes were checked, there were plastic explosives in someone's underwear. After men were profiled and separated, young women started blowing up themselves and others. US intelligence agents have been criticized for not connecting the dots. Without hundreds of bits of information buried among trillions that would show terrorism in planning. But there are different dots each time. The human mind is intensive. Human institutions will never be able to school the constantly changing pieces of information from smart people bent on hiding things. As Einstein said, the logical extreme is nuclear and chemical terrorism weapons in cities. If the United States and other countries want to succeed at stopping massive terror, you should start providing food, clothing, jobs, housing, and medical care to the people who can find the terrorists. In other words, many more people on the other side have to want to stop the path we are on. We can make them. Some years ago in South Africa, oceanographers found a dead whale on the beaches outside Cape Town. They towed it out to Seal Island, a famous habitat of great white shark that sometimes leap from the water in snagging birds and seals. For hours, the sharks gorged themselves on the way, so much so that they could hardly move. They just floated in the water as if drunk. Drivers went into the cages right next to the shark. Instead of the usual attacking and bumping, the sharks had no interest in the divers. This is a great analogy. When people get their needs met, they are generally much less interested in fighting. There's nothing intrinsic about Arabs and Jews that causes them to be enemies. Hundreds of thousands of Arabs live in Israel. Surveys show most are happy with their environment. A basis for successful negotiation is a coalition of diverse people built around collective interests, the necessities of life. This is not intended to provide a substantive answer to the Middle East or any other public controversy. How settlement and refugees are located. The precise location of land uses. These can all be figured out by experts. The point of this chapter is how to use better negotiation tools so that agreements are possible.